Stock photography, images, and video. What are the limitations of using them? Should you be using them? Hi, I'm Hans Sarkanfel for E-Commerce Gorilla. To start out, a simple disclaimer. I'm not providing legal advice, and you should always consult with your attorney if you have any questions about the legality of using a specific stock resource. That said, let's get into it. I'm going to use the term intellectual property whenever I'm referring to someone's copyrighted works, such as photographs, images, and videos. To start off, we need to clarify what royalties are. Royalties are what you pay the copyright holder for the continued use of their intellectual property. You can think of royalties as the rent you pay on an apartment. As long as you want to keep having access to the apartment, you have to keep paying the rent. Pretty straightforward so far. Another term you will see is royalty-free, and is used to describe certain types of intellectual property that can be used without having to pay royalty payments. Does this mean it's free to use however you want? No, absolutely not. You still have to license the copyrighted work, and generally you pay one upfront fee and then are not required to pay the copyright holder for each time the intellectual property is used inside the terms of license agreement. In short, you are not paying continuing royalties, but you still have to pay to license the intellectual property. If you're buying stock images and videos online, the seller will indicate the terms of the license agreement and provide different pricing options based on the end product of the intellectual property. Some sellers provide only one price, while others may limit the scope and scale of each piece of intellectual property based on price. So it's important to read through the license terms before you purchase. Before you run out and start buying stock imagery, you need to be aware of copyright releases that are provided with each piece of intellectual property. Every time a person is identifiable in imagery, the displayed model must have signed a model release. If there are multiple individuals included in the imagery, a model release must be signed by each model independently. It is also important to note that a standard model release does not allow the use of the imagery to imply an endorsement on the model's behalf. You can't just put stock imagery in your advertising if it implies that the model uses or approves of the product or service. There are also sensitive use cases not covered under a standard model release. You can't use the picture of the model alongside alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and it can't be used to infer that the model has a specific viewpoint or stance. You can't use stock imagery to imply that a model is a member of a political party or for the use in candidate ads. Furthermore, you cannot use stock imagery to imply the model's membership in any group, organization, or that the model has a certain disease or condition. If you wish to use stock imagery for the aforementioned purposes, you will have to obtain the specific rights to do so from the model and copyright holder. If your stock imagery contains children, ensure that a minor model release form has been signed by a parent or guardian. You also need to be aware of stock imagery that is for editorial use only. These are stock images and videos that do not have a model release associated, and as such can only be used in accompaniment to a news story such as newspaper, magazine, or blog, and is not used in an advertisement or promotion of a product or service. A good general rule is that anytime you see a large crowd in stock imagery, it is unlikely that the model releases were obtained. Remember, you are liable for the use of the imagery regardless if you purchased it with good intent. Just because you purchase a piece of stock imagery does not indemnify you if it later turns out that the imagery was sold improperly. You can legally still be on the hook for additional licensing and damages. Before we move on, if you like this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps. Just like a model release, distinct and identifiable private property and imagery needs to be released by the property owner. Great examples of this is the Hollywood sign and Disney's Magic Kingdom. So be careful about scenic shots that include distinct private property. This includes murals and other public artworks. The intent or focus of the final piece has much to say whether an editorial use would be permitted. If you're creating a news story about street art and include editorial imagery, that would most likely be covered. However, if you then use that same stock imagery to promote the same news story in advertising, you most likely have stepped into a realm of needing a property license. This also applies if you're using animals in stock imagery. You have to ensure they have an accompanying property release from their owners. Be especially careful about using stock images of animals as mascots for a brand. A standard property release would not cover such a usage, as you are implying a relationship between the brand and specific animal. I hope you found this information helpful. and that it will guide you in making decisions as to when and where you should consider using stock imagery. I'm not trying to dissuade you from utilizing stock imagery, but rather make you aware of the limitations associated with it so you can decide when and where it would be appropriate. It should be noted that some sellers of stock imagery provide a guaranteed amount of monetary indemnification if the stock they sell results in a claim. But be aware, the end usage and exposure of that stock element could have an impact on the overall damages claimed by the copyright holder, and it could very well outstrip the monetary protection offered by the seller. Also, this protection won't apply if you misuse the stock element outside of the license agreement, regardless if it was intentional or not. Thank you again for watching. If you have a question you would like answered in an upcoming video, head on over to ecommercegorilla.com/questions and drop us a note, or leave it in the comments below. If you know someone else who would find this information useful, please share it. And lastly, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell. We'll see you next time. Oh hey, you're still here. Maybe you'd be interested in one of our other videos? And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. It's right down there. You know this video's done, right? Click on one of the videos over there.